the clutch on the Magnum.
Hello, Mr. Hansen. Welcome to our interview. When did you meet Tobe Hooper first, and what do you think why he chose you to play as the awesome character of Leatherface?
I actually met Tobe when I interviewed for the part. I didn't know him before that. I heard there were these people in town making a movie, and they were looking for someone to play the killer. So I called the casting director and had an interview with him, and he said they'd call us back. So I assumed that meant no. And then he called me the next day, and I went down and met Tobe and the writer, Kim Hinkle, and that's really when I first met Tobe. And actually, I know why he hired me. I mean, we had a long conversation. We talked for more than an hour about the character, and then he asked me if I were violent, and I said no. And then he asked me if I was crazy, and I said no. And he looked sort of worried, and then said, "Can you do it?" And I said, "Yeah, I can do it." So he hired me. And then later, I found out that the reason he hired me was that when I came for the interview, I filled the door. I was the tallest and widest person who interviewed for the job, and that's how, so it was very strange. I mean, that was the basis of being hired to play Leatherface. Plus the fact that I told him it would be easy to do. So.
In private, do you like horror movies, or what's your favorite genre?
Before Chainsaw Massacre, I liked the old 1950s sci-fi horror movies, The Crawling Eye, and those movies that were really dreadful. And I loved those movies, but I, in general, was not a big fan of horror movies. I saw Frankenstein when I was a little boy, and it was just the most terrifying thing. And even to this day, I think the original Bela Lugosi Dracula movie is really boring. I just don't like it as a movie. Since doing Chainsaw, I'm a much bigger fan of horror. And there are a lot of horror movies that come out now I don't particularly care for, but I do watch a lot of horror now compared to before Chainsaw. My favorite genre, it's probably sci-fi, actually. Certainly, I would go to sci-fi movies before I go to horror movies. And in fact, my second favorite horror movie, I actually went to it because it was a science fiction movie, but Alien. I mean, I was interested in the science fiction part of it, although it's a great horror movie. That was the science fiction part that attracted me. Although my favorite horror movie was a straight-out horror movie, the 1961 The Haunting. And that was, there's nothing science fiction about that. That's straight out.
My first really terrifying horror movie was the Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Oh yeah.
But I was a little bit older, but it scared me very much. Can you tell us a little bit about the filmings of Texas Chainsaw Massacre? Were they hard, or were there some funny moments you remember?
Yeah, the filming was very hard because it was Texas in August and early September, so it was 100 degrees every day, one side or the other of 100, and very humid. And we shot 12 to 16 hours a day, 7 days a week. So we would finish for the day and take 12 hours off. Everybody's back on the set 12 hours later. It was the only union rule they followed. In union, you have to have 12 hours when you finish for the day. And so we would take a 12-hour break, and then we'd shoot again 12 to 16 hours. And one day we shot for 26 hours straight. We started at noon on Saturday and shot until 2 o'clock Sunday afternoon.
How long did you shot? In weeks or a month?
Well, we shot, the whole film took 6 weeks. My part took 4 weeks, so I shot for 28 days straight. That's all I did. I didn't do anything else. And I got up in the morning, got dressed, drove to the set. Or sometimes I got up at 3 in the afternoon, whatever the time was. And then I would come home and go to sleep. I had no time for anything else.
Were there some funny moments that you remember?
No, it was people always ask me if it was fun making the movie, and I always say no, it was a miserable experience. I mean, I loved the experience, but from my experience, it was just extremely difficult physically to do. And I was exhausted all the time from the filming. And there was never anything that happened that was really funny. I mean, there were bizarre things that happened. But there were a couple of times when the cameraman was so frightened he actually left. You know, at one point he just, at the end of a shot, he just sat up and said, "Oh God," you know, because he's the only one who sees it the way it's going to look. And then in the scene where Leatherface cuts the door and kicks it in and then runs up the stairs, the cameraman was on the floor. We had two cameras, so he was on the floor shooting up at the door, and he actually got up and ran out. But he was stoned.
I used this scene for the introducing of the
interview. Oh yeah.
Scary music.
Yeah.
I don't know.
He was very stoned that day, so no wonder he was fired.
After playing Leatherface, Wes Craven offered you to act in The Hills Have Eyes. I read on Wikipedia. Did you ever thought about that playing such an extreme character can be obstructive in case of becoming a famous actor? Because filmmakers may fix you on that kind of roles?
Well, I understand that that's very hard for many people, but it wasn't for me because I never was trying to have a career as an actor. My interest has always been writing. And so it didn't bother me at the least that I was cast, that people think of me as a killer, because I wasn't interested in being an actor. That's why I turned down The Hills Have Eyes. It wasn't because I didn't want to play another horror character. It's because I wasn't interested in working in movies. And I look back and said, this is really stupid, because I turned down movies for a long time because I didn't want to go through all the things a person has to do to become an actor. I mean, I was willing to do what I had to do to write, pay the bills. But the stupid part was I wasn't being asked to suffer. I was being asked to come out to Los Angeles or wherever and make a movie. And later I would think, why was I so stupid as to say no to, and as it turned out, of course, it was a great movie, but I just turned it down because I didn't want to be doing movies. Now I do movies when people ask me, and I'm happy that they do, and I understand that the reason they want me in their movie is because of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. So it does not bother me at all that I'm typecast, that people want me to play killers, or even if they don't want me to play the killer, the only reason they want me in their movie is because of Texas Chainsaw Massacre. And it's an honor. That's the way I feel. It's like, that's great to me if they want me in their movie.
And Reykjavik, while watching Massacre, you played the captain.
Yeah, Captain Peter.
Was a more cameo.
Yes, and that happens a lot where I come in, people want me for 1 day or 2 days, and then they send me home. Yeah,
stick through.
That was great. That film, that scene we shot for 3 days. I mean, it was wonderful to work in a movie like that where they had a real budget and they wanted to do everything very carefully. And so they took it's a 3.5-page scene, and there are other things that go on. So it wasn't like we spent 3 days putting that rod through me, but it was wonderful to have 3 days of filming time to work all those things out, because that never happens when you're shooting in low budget.
Why did you reject playing Leatherface again in Michael Bay's version of the movie?
Oh, well, they didn't ask me to play Leatherface.
I read on Wikipedia you rejected it.
No. In the remake, they called me and asked me to be in the movie to play the truck driver at the end of the movie, which is a 1-day quick scene. And they never asked me to play Leatherface, and it's fine with me. I have no objection. I understood that 30 years later they wanted someone younger to play Leatherface. There's no reason. I don't own the character. There's no reason that they should feel obliged to hire me to play Leatherface. I rejected it. Actually, I did not. Well, I did. The reason I said no was because they said no. They offered me union minimum. They offered me what they'd have to pay someone off the street to play a part. And I said to them, the only reason you want me in this movie is to put my name on your poster. I won't do that for $650. That's all. I mean, and I never made a demand for a lot of money. I just said, you have to pay me more than union. And they absolutely refused. I said, all right, I guess we're not working together.
I met the new Leatherface on the Weekend of Horrors. It's next to Bottrop, it's sitting next to Essen. He's very small. He's more than a head.
Not Andrew Bernasky. You mean the one?
I don't know the name. His long has Slayer tattoos all over the arms.
I don't know who that would be. Was he in the remake?
Yeah, in the remake.
Oh, that was Andrew Bernasky.
Yeah, he was smaller than yes.
Yes, yeah.
I wonder it's because he is so small. I am 1 meter 90 centimeters.
Oh, okay.
Was it always an objective for you to become an actor? I heard about that you worked at a theater in Austin, Texas, during your college time. But after you played Leatherface, you went back to Manila. We had the question.
Well, actually, no. I mean, let me finish that though. It's not true. I mean, first, I never worked in a theater. You know, I was in college and I finished graduate school, or what I thought. I ended up going back, but I finished graduate school and I was working for the summer. And truly, I had never considered acting career. And the only reason I did this was because I thought it would be a very interesting summer job.
Just for fun.
I just thought, exactly. I could say one day to my grandchildren, your old grandfather was once in a horror movie. I never thought of it as a career.
And what kind of novels do you write?
Well, I write. I don't write novels. I wrote for many years. I wrote for magazines, but now I write documentary films. I write documentary film scripts. That's what I mostly write. I've written some books and nonfiction books, and so I've written. I've written a couple of histories, and then I wrote a book which was a travel book. It was about human and natural history. It was the history of it and about the natural history of the islands along the U.S. coast. And so that's so mostly I write nonfiction. Documentary films. I have written a couple of screenplays that I've sold, but have never been made. And in both cases, I was asked to write them, so I did, and I got paid, but they never made them. And then I've written other. Well, this happens a lot. Most films, I don't know what the ratio is, but it's about 10 to 1. For every 10 scripts sold, only one gets made. Who knows why? But in those two cases, I think the companies that they were starting up making films, and they just had the money to get the script written, and I don't think they were ever able to do what they wanted. And I've done other scripts that I have pitched, and people have been interested in and have bought options on, but no one has ever bought the script outright or gone into production. So I would love to do that, and I continue when I have time to write scripts, but it's very secondary because it doesn't pay the bills yet.
What kind of scripts did you write?
The first script I wrote was a comedy, strangely enough. Actually, it was the second script. The first script I wrote was a horror film that I was approached about writing. And I wrote that, and then after that I was approached to write a comedy film about football, which I really enjoyed doing. And when they told me the premise, which is that the Russians, this was during Glasnost, the Russians want to make a football team to challenge the American NFL. And I said, oh, so it's the Dirty Dozen in football. And when I realized the director or the producer didn't know what I meant, I thought, oh, he doesn't know anything about the movies. So I did those two and then the rest have been, I've written a drama, adventure drama, and then the other script work has been horror. I wrote one called The Last Horror Picture Show, which is a parody. It's got some hardcore horror in it, but it's a parody of a lot of old horror movies, including Chainsaw Massacre. He makes fun of Chainsaw. And people keep optioning it, but nobody makes it.
Okay, it was a great honor. Thank you.
Thank you.